November 30, 1986, a phone call connected two people who hadn't been married for 26 years. Lucille Ball's daughter Lucie held the receiver to her father Desi Arnaz's ear because he was too weak to hold it himself. He was dying of lung cancer at 69, barely able to speak. On the other end of the line, Lucille's voice broke through the silence. She said the same three words over and over. "I love you. I love you. I love you," 5 times in a row. Desi, struggling to breathe, whispered back, "I love you too, honey. Good luck with your show." 2 days later, he was gone. What nobody realized until later was that their final conversation happened on November 30, what would have been their 46th wedding anniversary. The couple that made America believe in love had said goodbye on the day they'd once promised forever. This is the story of Lucille Ball's heartbreak, the empire she built, and the final words that revealed a truth she'd carried for decades. By 1989, Lucille Ball's name was still legendary, but her life no longer felt that way. The woman who once commanded 44 million viewers every Monday night was living in quiet isolation. Her Beverly Hills mansion, once full of laughter and guests, had grown cold. Most of her old friends were gone. Her children, Lucie and Desi Jr., lived far away and rarely visited. And though her second husband, Gary Morton, stayed by her side, he often spoke of the sadness that lingered in the air, the kind that fame and fortune could never erase. Lucille had been America's sweetheart, a symbol of joy, but behind closed doors, she was haunted by the past. The end of life with Lucie in 1986 had crushed her spirit. She'd come out of retirement hoping to remind the world she still had it. Instead, the show was canceled after only 8 episodes. For the first time in her career, audiences didn't laugh. Critics called it a painful farewell. Friends said Lucie took it personally, that she stayed up at night rereading the reviews, wondering if the magic was gone forever. Lucille Desiree Ball was born on August 6, 1911, in Jamestown, New York. But her childhood was anything but joyful. When she was only 3 years old, tragedy struck. Her father, Henry Ball, a telephone lineman, fell ill with typhoid fever. In the final weeks of his life, he was climbing poles in the snow, trying to fix tangled wires during a storm. His health failed fast. On February 28, 1915, he died, just 27 years old. Lucille's memories of that day never left her. She remembered her mother crying, a picture falling off the wall, and a small bird trapped inside the house. That image of the bird terrified her for the rest of her life. From that moment, she developed a deep fear of birds, not just real ones, but pictures or even patterns that resembled them. Friends later said she would refuse to stay in hotel rooms if there was bird wallpaper. To Lucie, that memory was more than superstition. It was grief she could never shake. Her mother, Dadi, was young and overwhelmed, pregnant with Lucille's little brother, Fred. To survive, she sent Lucille to live with relatives while she tried to rebuild their lives. Lucie grew up feeling displaced, like a guest in her own family. When her mother remarried a man named Ed Peterson, things didn't get easier. His parents were strict and cold, banning mirrors in the house so the children wouldn't grow vain. Lucie would later say those years taught her how to act, how to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. Then came another tragedy. When Lucie was 11, her stepfather's father brought home a rifle for her brother Freddie. Freddie's friend was aiming the rifle when neighbor Warner Erickson, age 8, stepped in front of her. The boy was accidentally shot, the bullet passing through his spine and paralyzing him. Lucie's grandfather was found legally accountable and placed under house arrest. Unable to work, he declared bankruptcy. The house was foreclosed and its furnishings sold. One accident destroyed everything. Lucie later said those early losses taught her that stability was an illusion, that everything you loved could disappear in an instant. By the time Lucille Ball reached her late 20s, she'd already faced more rejection than success. Her dream of acting began in New York, but it was crushed early when her teachers at the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts told her she had no talent. One instructor even sent her home, telling her mother not to waste money on lessons. Years later, Lucie would remember that humiliation as the turning point that made her tougher. "All I learned there," she once said, "was how to be frightened." But she didn't quit. She went back to New York in 1928, took modeling jobs to survive, and eventually moved west to Hollywood. In the 1930s, she became known around studios as the Queen of the B-movies. She appeared in more than 75 films, usually as a chorus girl, a sidekick, or the woman who never got the spotlight. Still, she never stopped learning. Each set taught her timing, posture, and control. The camera loved her even when the industry didn't. Then in 1940, her life changed forever. During the filming of Too Many Girls, she met a young Cuban musician named Desi Arnaz. He was confident, charming, and unpredictable. They met on set, danced together during breaks, and within months eloped. They married on November 30, 1940. Everyone said it wouldn't last, and in many ways they were right. Desi drank heavily, stayed out late, and had a wandering eye. Lucie, who had spent her whole life craving stability, found herself in chaos once again. But she loved him deeply and believed that if they worked together, maybe they could save each other. That belief gave birth to I Love Lucie. In 1948, Ball was cast in the CBS radio comedy show My Favorite Husband. After its success, Ball was asked by CBS to develop it for television. She agreed on one condition, that she could work with her real-life husband, Arnaz. The network resisted, claiming audiences wouldn't accept an interracial couple. Lucie refused to compromise. To prove them wrong, she and Desi created a live vaudeville tour. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and CBS finally gave in. The show became a phenomenon. Every Monday night, the nation stopped to watch Lucie and Ricky Ricardo. At its peak, I Love Lucie pulled in 44 million viewers, more people than watched the president's address. Lucie's comic genius, her willingness to humiliate herself for a laugh, and her perfect timing made her the face of television comedy. But behind the laughter, her marriage was falling apart. In her 1989 memoir, Love Lucie, Ball revealed that Desi's presumed infidelity was one of the main reasons she decided to end their marriage. During the summer of 1944, Desi stopped coming home. One night I tossed sleeplessly until dawn, wondering where our marriage had gone awry and what I had done wrong, she wrote. Yet she stayed, hoping that love could survive fame. For a while it did. But when I Love Lucie ended in 1957, the cracks in their marriage were too deep to hide. On March 3, 1960, just one day after Desi's birthday and the filming of their final episode together, she filed for divorce. 2 months later, their 20-year marriage was officially over. Despite the split, they remained tied together by love and business. Lucie bought out Desi's shares of Desilu Studios for $2.5 million, becoming the first woman to run a major Hollywood studio. In 1961, Lucille married comedian Gary Morton, a kind and patient man 13 years younger than her. They stayed together until her death, but it was never quite the same love she had for Desi. She once told a friend, "Gary gave me stability, but Desi gave me fire." Even as she moved on, she never truly let go of her first husband. Their daughter Lucie insisted that their divorce was actually positive for the family. They had a fantastic romance that even got more passionate and more friendly after they were not married to each other anymore. In November 1986, Lucille received the phone call she'd been dreading for months. Desi Arnaz was dying. Lung cancer had taken hold and he had little time left. Despite decades of separation, Lucie never stopped caring for him. She visited him in Del Mar when he was sick. Lucie ran and got as many VHS tapes as she could find. They sat there for a couple hours and looked at old I Love Lucie shows and laughed and remembered. On November 30, their wedding anniversary, Lucie phoned him again. Lucie held the receiver to her father's ear. All Lucie could say was, "I love you," over and over. Desi whispered back, "I love you too, honey. Good luck with your show." 2 days later, on December 20, 1986, Desi Arnaz died at age 69. He died in Lucie's arms. For Lucie, it was as if the last light in her life had gone out. Just 5 days after his death, Lucille attended the Kennedy Center Honors in Washington, D.C. She had planned to skip it, but her family convinced her to go. Midway through the ceremony, actor Robert Stack walked onto the stage holding a letter. It was from Desi. He had written it just days before he died, knowing she would be honored that week. Stack began to read. "The New York Times asked me to divide the credit for I Love Lucie's success between the writers, the directors, and the cast. I told them, give Lucie 90% of the credit and divide the other 10% among the rest of us. Lucie was the show. Viv, Fred, and I were just props. Darn good props, but props nevertheless. P.S. I Love Lucie was never just a title. As the letter was read, the camera cut to Lucie. Her hands trembled, her eyes filled with tears. Gary Morton held her hand tightly while President Ronald Reagan and First Lady Nancy Reagan looked on. For the first time in public, Lucille Ball, the woman who made millions laugh, broke down and cried. Everyone in the theater did the same. A few years later, in 1989, Lucie gave her final television interview. Her face was thinner, her voice softer, but her humor still sharp. When asked what she wanted to be remembered for, she paused, then said quietly, "For making people happy." The room fell silent. She smiled faintly and added, "That's all I ever wanted." It was a simple answer, but it carried the weight of a lifetime. Months later, she suffered a heart attack, underwent surgery, and briefly seemed to recover. But on April 26, 1989, her heart gave out. She died from an acute aortic aneurysm. She was 77. Lucille Ball's story reminds us that even the brightest stars carry shadows behind their light. She lost her father at 3, was rejected by acting schools, became the queen of B-movies before finally breaking through. She built television's first power couple with a man whose infidelity nearly destroyed her. She became the first woman to run a major Hollywood studio. She buried her best friend Vivian Vance and watched her final sitcom fail. And in her last years, she lived with the knowledge that the great love of her life had slipped away decades earlier. But on their wedding anniversary, 46 years after they'd first said "I do," she got to say "I love you" one last time. And he said it back. That's the truth nobody expected. That even after everything, the love never really left.